I just want to thank you all as well for being here and staying the course with me. So I do apologize. I'm saying that as we're about to kick things off. Welcome, Eliana, and thank you for the shout out, Drea. And welcome. This is Morgan. Welcome, welcome, welcome. As you all know, this is literally my heartbeat right now, which is sharing the journey of pain to purpose. And this actually came about from one of your group members by the name of Kristen. So I always want to give her a shout out, but I also want to give a shout out to you all. Welcome to this space. We're going to be recapping today our journey thus far. We're going to talk about a key central question that has been asked to me in another room, which is what is faith and what is its role in regards to our journey from pain into purpose. Welcome, Rachel. And so as we jump into things, you all know how I normally do things. We're going to go through the formalities. And then after that, we're going to do our icebreaker. I'm actually going to do interaction in and out because there's a lot of recapping, but I'm going to touch base with you all. So hopefully today we get the gist of the whole story arc thus far. And before we jump into that, I definitely need to give another shout out to Circles because they stood by my side as I took this test. You all stood by my side as I took this test. So thank you again for that. And you also know that we're recording. So I want to just say real quick that the reason why I, as a group facilitator, I'm on this platform is because the mission of Circles aligns with my values. Welcome, my and the value that I see that is very central to what even the U.S. Surgeon General said is addressing world's loneliness aspect, and he called it an epidemic, which I believe it's the case too. But I believe Circles, and if you've ever heard Erod's story, he's one of the founders in regards to the aspect of where he experienced this unfortunate loss of his mother. But through that loss, he learned that we all are going through similar experiences, but we need people that we can connect to, whether it's a small group of individuals that actually share the same life challenges. And that profoundly impacted me. Then I was able to join along with you all. There's over 150,000 people on this. That's not including the group facilitators, by the way. And on this app, so you all know there's peer to peer, there's 24/7 small audio rooms that's led by moderators, group facilitators. So you have, I tell you all this, and I believe it, this is your biggest interdisciplinary team. So use it to your advantage. If you're listening, by the way, if this is a recording, if you're going to listen to it later, this will be available you all as a Spotify. So you'll get that link as well. And so you can listen to it afterwards. Hopefully you can skim through my talking and get to the main juices of the conversation. But our topic today will be Journey from Pain into Purpose. It's literally the title of our masterclass because we're recapping, and our next sessions will be more or less I'm bringing people on so that they can tell their stories. And I'll be using a semi-structured interview format so that you all can ask some questions and hear from some other people that took that transformative journey. So let's kick off things with a quick welcome, Teresa, a quick icebreaker, but it's a personal reflection. I want you all to reflect with me as we go on this journey. So the question, and I'll put it in the chat, welcome, Lori. The question I have for you all, if you could go back, right? If you could go back in time and give one piece of advice to your younger self. And I'm big on advice right now because that was the icebreaker that I received, and I'm getting from you all. So I'm hoping that I can actually get some information from you all. So here it is, a piece of advice to your younger self who was at the beginning of their journey from pain to purpose. What would it be? And I'll put it in the chat. If you could give one piece of advice to your younger self that's at the beginning of that journey from pain into purpose, what would it be? And so I'm going to put it in the chat for you all real quick. Oh, Eliana, you're not playing today. I see it already. I see it already. So for those that may be driving, I'm going to read it out loud for you. Eliana says that her advice to her younger self would be to put yourself first. I love it. I love it. All right, I'm going to read it one more time. I just placed it in chat for you all. If you could go back in time and give one piece of advice to your younger self, and this is at the beginning of your journey, right? Not in the middle, We talked about that as well. Sometimes the message is at the beginning. So now what we're going to do is give ourselves a message. We're going to see what message, reflective wise, we would give to ourselves. And what would it be? Drea says, to get good at something, you need to love the process. To get good at something, you need to love the process. Okay. Okay. All right. I'm going to take a quick pause because I do see Beth's hand. Beth, what would you like to share?
That time is valuable. So, and it goes by fast. So don't waste valuable time. Make the most out of it.
Oh, I love that. Time is valuable and make the most of it. That actually correlates to one of the leadership principles I've learned along the way, which is never make what you're doing more important than the people you're doing it with, right? And so people are also valuable in the time that we spend with them. And we learn a lot of that through either separation, divorce, and I talk about anywhere on these milestones, whether you're going through grief, anything of change in a professional setback. There's grieving periods, but the time that we spend is equally important. And remember this, comes from Patrick Peters. He said to me that, Denard, the wait is just as important as what you're waiting on. So we already see a theme here. Get good at something, but trust the process and enjoy it. But also know that time is valuable. Make the most of it. Spend time with individuals as well. And Morgan said you weren't born broken and you deserve to love yourself. It's okay to try. Ooh, I would. Uh, okay, Morgan, I would love to hear a little bit of more about that. What do you? I think I know what you mean, but if you're able to unmute, share a little bit more about what do you mean about you weren't born broken.
Sure, I'm happy to. So I experienced some abuse as a toddler,
Mhm.
and my parents tried to deal with it. Unfortunately, the therapist that they went to told them that I was fine, and the best thing they could do would be pretend it never happened, and I just forget. And that didn't happen. So
Mm,
I had a lot of mental health issues starting in childhood, and because I didn't understand why, I believed until my early 30s, I was born broken for no reason and I didn't
mm.
deserve help or to like myself in any way. So I would love to be able to go back and tell myself that that's not actually true and I do deserve those things.
Yeah, yeah. That is, thank you, Morgan, for elaborating. And in full transparency moment, you all, um, the very similar experience, and my wife would definitely, hopefully, when she gets a chance, I would love her to chime into that conversation. I recall vividly, Morgan, when she starts to kick off her journey with just therapy, and she's at these aha moments, significant changes, awareness, but it leaves her feeling like she's broken, right? And I resonate deeply with what you're saying, that just going back to that point, just to give yourself the gall, the admonition, the affirmation that no, you're not broken. It is so pivotal because us as adults, that's how we see things, right? It's either sometimes black or white, or I need to be fixed, or I have to fix this. So I love that advice. I'm loving everything that I see here. And I hopefully, and Lori has placed, actually, okay, we have more here. Let me read these last two if you all don't mind. And then we're going to keep moving. Rachel, to the 2.5 year part of me, I would say trust your gut. You know something isn't right. Ask for help and use your voice. Good girls are not silent. If you haven't been in rooms with Rachel, you know this aspect of like the voice of the voiceless, and the quote that she shares. It is so important, especially when you talk about a child, right? Trying to communicate, wanting to communicate, but your communication is suppressed because you're overlooked. You're not valued. Your thoughts are not supposedly formulated where you get to see. And I love what Jason Reynolds, who's the Library of Congress, he's one of the child advocates. He says basically that children are human libraries, right? They see more than what we think. They actually see everything. That's why they can be honest to us about things that your adult friends would lie to you about. And so we need to consider that, and also tell our adult selves that too. The things that we've suppressed because we're trying to protect ourselves, and we're going to talk about that. One of the things we talked about is the four phases of change, and the first phase is panic. And essentially, we try to protect ourselves because we're in that state of panic. And so we suppress, we repress, and we never actually get the chance to process and digest because we're protecting ourselves. So this is very important. Thank you for reminding us of this. And Lori Ann says, being vulnerable with people you love and trust is a superpower. It's a superpower. And when you become aware of those who do not see it as such, you are being blessed with an important message. Oh, you all started deep today. I am okay. Okay, I'm going to let these sit, and hopefully, if you're in need of hope or inspiration or just a reminder, um, please take some of these information and some of these advice to take in now, because this exercise is not only a reflection, by the way, but it's a reminder that the journey from pain to purpose is rooted in lessons. This is equally important for me to say, but lessons learned and wisdom gained, right? So as you reflecting, I want you to know even that broken part, to tell you that broken part even now, that I've learned, I'm growing, right? And it's also a transition into understanding, right? And so we're going to also talk about today in regards to that wisdom, how faith plays a role into navigating through pain. But before we get there, let me actually recap, because I know we all have come at different points, a part of the journey and some of the master classes we've discussed thus far. And so let me just go through my list here as I see it. And then afterwards, we're going to reflect together. And I have a poem that we created actually in our first masterclass that I'm going to continue to introduce us. It's the Road to Purpose that we created as a group. So I forgot to continue to keep that here, but that's what I will do moving forward. Essentially, we covered a lot of topics. I won't go into them all. I'm just generally covering them in like some of the key points. But we talked about addressing isolation and loneliness. And for me, it was the career change that I never knew I needed, right? Sometimes we're thinking that we need to go through a certain place and space, right? But sometimes it's the things that you never knew you needed that's essential for you to make the change that you need, right? And so, or we talked about expressing pain through different mediums, which is that spoken word I talked about. And we created it literally on the spot in this room. We created a Road to Purpose poem that has significant meaning to me. So I want to bring it to this space again. And then talking about significance, we talked about the significance of the backstory, right? We want to make sure that you remember that your backstory is equally important to your story, right? It's not something that you have to overlook. It's something that actually makes your story relatable. It actually makes it also brings the depth to your story, and it also makes it real. So we want to make sure that you remember our backstory. That's what makes you who you are. Remember, I talked about this in this space that I heard from I think it was an Instagram post by Donald Miller, and he talked about the aspect that the villains and the heroes have the same backstory. You know, they were either orphaned and then they have some level of pain. And typically the villain has, you can see the scar of their pain through either a speech impediment or something else. And the difference, though, was how they respond to their pain. The villain basically says, the world hurt me, I'm going to hurt it back. And the hero says, the world hurt me, I'm going to make sure that never happens to a Lori, that never happens to a Drea, that never happens to a Beth. So that's the difference in how we respond to our pain. So we wanted, and with that being said, we talked about the message in your pain. I told you all I learned in church that typically the overcoming and testimony time, this is not what they taught, but this is how I derived the message. It was basically after I get through my circumstance, my trial, my tribulation, my hurdle, my barrier, that I will have a message to give to the world. But what I've learned is that the message is typically in the beginning. What happens is our trauma gives us an opportunity to actually suppress that message. And then it changes the course and trajectory of that superhuman power that Lori talked about. And so our job is to pull back that message, give that broken stuff that we thought was broken the tools again to remind ourselves that no, just as beautiful as that butterfly, you saw all the colors of the butterfly, you saw all the aspects of the sediments in that broken rock. That's exactly how you are as well. The water passes through you, the sediments of everything. It actually is what creates who you are. So we talked about looking at the message in the beginning versus waiting till you get out of the circumstances. And then we also talked about the catalyst and the debate. The catalyst is basically the thing that actually kicks everything into motion. It's that moment where you experience a personal tragedy, a professional setback. I talked to you all about my entire professional trajectory has been um, um, girded and protected by Black women. And the Laura Contino Hamilton was the one that actually forged a path for me when I felt like the world was against me. And then, unfortunately, she passed due to a tragic accident, and that left an indelible impression upon me. But it helped me to recognize that I can actually continue to forge that same legacy for someone else. You know, create a space where even when I have everything going on, I can still make that person feel like they're the world to me. And that's what Laura Katina Hamilton did for me. But then there's the debate. The debate is that internal conflict. I want to make sure that you understand this. This is very important because there's different parts of our story that there's an external conflict, but this is the internal conflict where you're deciding if I should move forward or if I should give up, right? And remember, I told you all my favorite quote that I learned through my journey of heartbreak was that the distance between giving up and giving your all is the same, which is your last breath, but it's the difference maker is where you choose to take it. I'm going to say this again. The distance between giving up and giving your all is your last breath. But what makes the difference is where you choose to take it, right? And the reason why this is important with the internal conflict is for me, my internal conflict was, should I let this person back into my life? Right when I was ready to move on, and that's where I needed to start to make the decision for myself. And I learned during that internal conflict that sometimes we move on but we don't move forward, meaning you can actually go into a new relationship but you have the same ingredients, meaning you're looking for the same ingredients in that person. You're looking for it, and you still possess some of the same ingredients, right? And so we talk about, then you need to get into a breaking into moment. The breaking into moment is pivotal. This is actually the climax, I would say, of your turning point. This is where you leave the old way of thinking behind and you forge a new path. And you know that science has proven, neuroplasticity says that you can create new neural pathways. So this is essentially, if you were to use your cognitive map to think about the pivotal point of your story, that's your breaking into moment where you actually, for me, it was essentially telling the person I thought was going to be my first and my last, to say to myself that, whoa, this is different now. I'm realizing that my last would be my first. So my wife, who is older, she is actually the one I experienced all my first with, while the person that I thought I was going to experience my last with was my first. So that new way of thinking forged a path for me to say, I'm no longer going to be superficial and expect the person that I want to be everything for me. I'm going to become that person myself. And thereby I can learn the standard by what to look for. For those that are always talking about red flags, I stopped looking for red flags. I started to become the flag, right? I knew what my standard was because I was actually living it up myself. And that's where you start to get to a midpoint. You think you've actually gone over the hurdle, you broke away from the new thinking, and that's where you start to understand the false victories. The midpoint of falsity is the false victories, where you thought you got over that hump, but then you go right into it. So that's that moving on and not moving forward. So before I met my wife, I went into a new relationship and I thought everything I learned was not going to happen again. And I found myself in the same position again. And many of us find ourselves in the same position again. I call that the rocking chair moment, where you're moving forward and you're still taking 2-3 steps back and you feel like you're going nowhere, right? And so through these sessions, we learned one ultimate thing, which is it's important to be authentic. And I told you all this, that it takes energy to be fake. You will learn that over time, right? So the transformative power of telling our story through pain is that pain, when you experience pain and you allow yourself to feel everything, you no longer can be fake, right? You're forced to face pain head on, right? So that's the gist of everything we covered. And again, we talked about isolation, the transformative power of pivotal moments of your change. But ultimately, what I want you to know today is, and I've said this in numerous rooms, if you're second guessing yourself, despite going through a narcissistic relationship, emotionally unavailable relationship, You might be sitting at the point of mediation or dissolution right now. But what I want you to do is show up as yourself, authentically be you, authentically be you. And so as we go into this next journey, I'm going to craft, that's a recap of everything. And I just want you to reflect on all that. Think about what actually resonated with you the most. We'll take some time to talk about that. But before we go to that, I do want to gift you back to what you all gifted to me in the form of a meditated journey of a poem that you all wrote in this space. So the title of the poem is Road to Purpose. There will be moments where I will ask you to engage with me for the breaths, because I believe that just like Jason Reynolds says, breath laughter is important, where we share moments of breathing together. So we're going to do that together. I invite you into this space. So please lend me your heart, your mind, and your ears as I read a poem that we created together called The Road to Purpose, Road to Purpose. So on the count of three, I'll invite you to find a color to the left of you. We want to use all our sensory perceptions, you all, as we go into this poem, because this is going to lay the context of how we journey together as we are already made poem in this space that we're in. So find a color to the left of you. I see this cream color to the left of me. Grab a hold of it. And if you want to close your eyes, what I would invite you to do is make sure that it doesn't go pitch black. Just invite yourself to keep that color in your mind. So if your mind wanders, you can go back to that color. Road to Purpose, written by us. I walk this winding road, the sounds are bustling all around. The smell of fresh air, it fills my lungs and make me drown. My heart is pounding. The palpitations, I can feel it in my chest, Beth. I'm scared of what's ahead, Drea, but I know I must press on. The road gets darker, Lori. The sounds of bustling fades away. I'm all alone now. The only sound is my own breathing. Breathe with me on the count of three. 1, 2, 3. Take in a deep breath. Exhale. But I know, Morgan, I'm not going to stay. It's getting harder to breathe. My chest is tight. My lungs are burning, but I keep going. I know I'm almost there. Rachel, I can hear people talking, the cars honking, the children laughing. It's all so loud. It's almost deafening. I see a light at the end of the tunnel. It's bright and radiant. Eliana, and it's focused. It's getting brighter. I can almost touch it. I can feel my fingers burning. Oh, no, that's where I'm going. That's where my purpose is. I invite you to take a deep breath with me again. On the count of three, breathe in through your nose. 1, 2, 3. Exhale through your mouth. I take a deep breath and I keep walking. I know I'm almost there. I can feel it in my bones, KD. Larissa, I reach the end of the tunnel and I'm blinded by the light, but I keep my eyes open and I see my purpose. I see my purpose. Ms. Daniels, I'm waiting for me with open arms. It's waiting for me. My purpose. I run to it. I run to it. We run to it, Ron. And we're finally home. It's our purpose. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Now, as we journey together on the road to purpose, we set the reality that it's a journey. It's a journey. This is what you all crafted together. So I wanted to give this back to you all as we journey together and talk about a pivotal part, which I believe we haven't really talked much about, which is faith. We've discussed the importance of understanding pain, the value of backstories. You heard me talk about authenticity, but I want to dive a little deeper in the role of faith. So let me ask just a big question, right? A big question, but answer it however you feel comfortable, right? What is faith? What is faith? What is faith? I'm going to place it in the chat. Just raise your hand, share what you think your thought is on it. But what is faith? And here we go. Let me place it in the chat. Give me 1 second. Then I'll turn my attention to anyone that wants to share their thoughts on it. Okay, go ahead, Beth. I see your hand.
It's complete confidence and trust. And for me, it's in God. It's the evidence of things hoped for and the substance of it as well. Like, as God answers my prayers and shows that He's real, and interactive in my life and in others. That's my definition.
So complete confidence and trust, right? So there's a conviction. I hear a conviction there, correct?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Okay. And your worldview, it's of God, right? So let me
Yeah.
ask you a question. Let me ask you a question. We're gonna, and if it's okay if I nudge you in this. Oh, actually, I'll wait. I'll come back to you because I do see Rachel. And if it's okay, my nudge will be to you. Simply, the question I'm thinking about is faith something only associated with God, right? You don't have to answer yet. I'm going to go to Rachel, and then afterwards, I'm going to come back to you, Beth. Okay?
Okay.
All right. All right. Go ahead, Rachel. What are your thoughts?
Thank you. So for me, I feel like faith is, I guess, best expressed in these like sayings. The first one is an acronym. So, um, forward all issues to Him, or forward all issues to heaven. And then the other one that I really like says, go to the edge, they said. We can't. We are afraid. Go to the edge, they said again. We went, they pushed, and we flew. Or faith is the belief that there will be something solid to stand on, or that you will be taught how to fly. And the other one that I really like is that, and I'm paraphrasing this one, but like, shout out to all the closed doors, bumps in the road, and speed bumps and detours for keeping me safe from harm.
Oh, Rachel, why you do this to me? You know I'm gonna need all those in the chat if you get a chance. Whatever you can, just please place it in there. Those I need everything that, and also let me turn to the chat. Hey, listen, you all, thank you first off for actually entertaining me with this question because I know it's a foundational question, but it's also one that has complexities associated with it. But I love the visuals, Rachel, that you gave here as well. And the last one I resonate deeply with. Thinking for the detour, such a paradigm shift, right? Such a reframe. And allow me, if you all do not mind, I want to read out loud the ones that I see here as well. Drea shared completely trusting without logical reason. Okay. And Ron says faith is the belief that is not based on truth or facts. Okay. All right. So trust. And Lorianne says trust and confidence without physical evidence to support it. Okay. All right. So I see a theme. Now, if you all will allow me just 1 second, I want to go back to Beth. And the theme I already see right now, there's these, it's very a meta-analysis of the reality that there is lack of evidence, lack of reasoning. And I'm not saying this is exactly what you all are saying, but this is what I see as a just overarching theme equates to a level of faith, right? And Beth, my question to you, and remember you all, we're talking about it in the context of journey from pain to purpose. So my question to you, Beth, would you say that faith is only tied to the worldview with like the worldview you have where faith is in God. So do you think faith is only tied to God?
Well, I believe that it originates from God because, someone or something, a higher power, whatever made, you know, is over all things.
Mm,
So yes, and it includes commitment, cooperation, trust, and confidence.
okay. Okay. There's something you said I want to pull out real quick if you don't mind. So what I heard basically from the chat, and thank you for allowing me to nudge you here. Um, what I saw from the chat is there is a mentioning of reason or lack thereof, lack of evidence, right? So there's this deeply, and you talked about conviction actually, Beth, earlier, like a deep, I would say deep personal belief that goes beyond tangible evidence. That's what I'm grasping thus far. But you brought something else that I think is important. There's a bigger plan, like trusting in something greater, right? So here's a follow-up question I have for everyone then, right? Knowing that we're here, and Kristen said basically when she's joined different rooms here, she noticed that people would grieve, they would share, but it's as if they're looking for more. So she reaches out to LinkedIn, reaches out to me on LinkedIn. She says, Denard, can you create a space? Can we create a space where people can actually journey from pain into purpose, but through surrender and grow in faith, right? So I'm like, okay, cool. But how can faith help us? Like, how does it assist us during our journey from pain to purpose? Like knowing that the things that we're actually affecting us are external and or internal, but a lot of it is very tangible and evidential. So how does faith assist us when we're saying it's beyond the evidence and tangible stuff, when a lot of what's affecting us, whether it's our health, whether it's school, whether it's jobs, whether it's relationships, are tangible? So how does faith assist us during that journey from pain to purpose? And I'll put this question in the chat. And I see your hand, Drea. Go ahead and share what your thoughts are, if you don't mind.
Yeah, I was just gonna say that for me, faith helps me to continue, like to move forward. It helps me to keep going, in spite of the fear and whatever else I'm feeling. It just helps me to keep going.
Okay, Drea, I'm actually going to ask a question. I got a nudge. Drea. You know me. So how? That's the question. The question is how. Like I'm very curious. I want to explain this to my 3-year-old and my 1-year-old. Right? How can faith move us from that journey from pain to purpose? So you can share a personal experience if you'd like, Drea, or you can pass if you'd like to.
I don't really have like a personal experience, but I mean, I'm sure I do, but that I've utilized faith, like where else I would not have acted without faith. But like, I think how is because it keeps your hope alive in something bigger that it's gonna work out. Everything's gonna be okay. So that's for me, and the how of faith gets me to move along is like I have faith that it's all gonna be okay.
I love that. So I'm hearing something else that's actually juxtaposed to it or attached to it. There's this concept of hope, right? And I think that falls in line with what we were saying earlier, because now we're seeing the complexity of the concept of faith, right? I would say it can be defined in different ways, you all, and that's what you saw from how we've defined it, but also in general what we've seen, and I'm recapping what we've seen, what we've said today in the chat. It's a belief in something that can't be seen or proven, right? I'm just following where we're going. Now we heard from Beth, faith can be religious in nature, spiritual, but it can also be secular, you all, right? Now my worldview, when I present it, it's more in the aspect of spiritual and religious, but it can also be secular. Because, for example, someone might have faith in their own abilities, right? Someone might have faith in um, the power of love or the goodness of humanity, right? So what I'm trying to bring forth is when we think about that how, and especially when we're journeying and telling our story, there's specificity with it. There's a lived experience with it. But I also want to share with you all that while faith has a variety of ways of being defined, how it's experienced is very specific, very specific. And that's what can help us to start to move and journey through our pain and our purpose. Although it actually can manifest in different ways, it does what you just said. And I think it was Drea that said it. I'm getting Drea and Beth's comments mixed, but I think Drea, you said faith can give us hope, right? That's what you shared?
Yeah, I definitely
Okay.
correlate the two. Yeah, faith and hope.
Okay. Yeah, so I would say that if we go back to the aspect of the poem that we all created, the spoken word piece, the theme that you see from it, although this is a cheap cliche, typically it's this the difficulty that you see the transition in the story to see the light at the end of the tunnel, right? And then to the point where the person actually struggling, but they have this hope and they keep going. So the first part of that how it can assist us, it actually, just like you said, it gives hope. And what I would like to submit to you all, and I talk about this from the biblical perspective, when you read the book of Psalms, the psalmist David, he tends to use an interesting concept, which is called present hope. Hope tends to be something more future tense related, but he uses this concept of present hope. And I'm trying to make sure that we correlate this aspect of moving from where we're at to where we want to be. And the present hope concept, if I were to use a metaphor, it's what we call telescopic language, right? When you think about a telescope, the telescope brings what is afar to where you're at, not just near to where you're at, right? But it's through the purview at which the perspective in which you're looking. So let's build on what we're hearing from Drea. The aspect of hope opens the lens of that tunnel that tunnel vision where things were looking bleak to actually start to circulate the mind in the thing that's afar to bring present hope into the circumstance that you're in, right? While it, again, we said faith can be defined in numerous ways. It can be religious in nature, can also be secular. But the main point I want to actually derive from what Drea said is the first thing in the how it gives hope, especially when we're struggling. Especially when we're struggling. That's why I believe when we combat loneliness, we're talking about also combating suicidal ideation, because those two components, when you move past loneliness, you start to drift beyond loneliness, you start to get helplessness, you get this aspect of hopelessness, right? So faith actually starts to move us towards hope, right? That light at the end of the tunnel. But somebody else said something too that I would submit to y'all is equally important. Faith can help us believe that things will get better even when we can't see how. Even when we can't see how. And so that's why when I was reading in the chat, what stood out to me a lot was this aspect of not having tangible evidence, physical evidence, and not based on the truth and facts or without logical reason. And so there's this aspect that things will get better even if you can't see how, right? So the how that starts to move us is hope, but we don't necessarily always have the detail. So that, I believe, that's all placed in hope. But the second thing I would say to you all is that faith also gives you a level of strength of fortitude, which I would call resilience. So, for example, when you're facing challenges that are difficult, you have to move hope into action to something we call courage, right? The courage to keep going. And that's why I always tell you all there's a difference between moving on and moving forward. You can move on to something different with the same ingredients, right? So faith can give you the strength to persevere and actually overcome obstacles. And then the third thing I would say, as we're sharing, I would say, so we have this present hope, the telescopic language, right? So it's not just hope for future, but it's hope bringing the hope closer to where you're at, right? So then it moves you to have courage. So it's active hope. It's active hope. I want to make that difference, right? This is the difference between kinetic and potential energy. There's something acting on it. There's a force behind it, right? And then with that force, you have this level of fortitude and strength, this resilience. The third thing I would say, faith then gives us a when I say cognitive map, I would say like a aspect of guidance, right? So when we talk about guidance, I'm talking about the sense of there's another L that I tend to talk about when we talk about loneliness, that couples and cripples us. It's when we feel lost, right? Or unsure what to do. Welcome, Bobby.
Thank you.
You're welcome. We're welcome. We're recapping our just discussion about faith real quick, and how it actually helps or how it moves us from pain into purpose. And so the quick recap is what we've defined faith as. Hopefully I can actually define it quickly how we shared it. But one, we said that it's there's different ways to define it. Let me say that. But also it's this deep rooted conviction, belief in something that cannot be seen or proven. Right. And I also broadened the definition beyond like the religious or spiritual side to even secular, meaning people can exhibit faith in their own abilities and themselves and the things and people around them as well. But the faith that we're talking about is like a present hope faith. It's that faith that brings what is afar near so that you can start moving forward and not just move on till you have courage, you can have the strength. It's an active faith. And then it guides. So this guidance that I'm referring to is actually when you're lost and unsure what to do. Faith can help you find your way. Faith can help you have what we would call, and it's churchy language, but it's discernment, right? Or intuition, right? You saw in the chat where you heard from Rachel talked about trusting your gut. That's where you can find the right path to start making wiser decisions, right? So I'm gonna stop here because that's a lot. I know we just discussed a lot. But any thoughts, any questions that you have in regards to what we've discussed thus far, I want to open it up to the room before we actually start to wrap up in our last 15 minutes together. Hey, Bobby, do you have a question? Oh, I think he's.
No.
You're good. You're good. And let me turn my attention to the chat real quick. I'm sorry, I missed a couple of things. Oh, Rachel, you placed the things in the chat. Okay. So, Bobby, other things that were mentioned were acronyms for faith and how we defined it. It's in the chat. And Rachel is sharing some of the other metaphors and things that she found here in the chat. And I'll read Drea's as well. Hope is the only reason I'm still alive. Faith gives hope and saves lives. I love that. And Morgan says, me too, Drea. That's so true. And again, you all, this space is about storytelling. So if you all would like to share how faith has helped save lives, or especially your life, I would love to hear, because we're going to continue to talk about this aspect of faith and how it pertains to our journey from pain into purpose. But what's most important is your story. That's the most important part of it. So if anyone would like to share how faith has helped you on your journey, let's share this space with you today.
It wasn't faith, that's for sure.
Say more, Bobby.
I don't know if I'm in the wrong room or not, or whatever, but I try to stay away from this stuff. The only thing that saved me was 2 therapists that I have, and them paying attention to what I want to say and helping me see that, because I wanted to do myself in when my husband passed away, and my dog. I just didn't want to be around anymore. And there were 2 facilitators. Laura was one of them, and she passed away. And Jackie, who I have now. And then I went to private therapy with a therapist that I've known him for 50 years. And he guided me back to wanting to live. And it took me 3 years, but I'm on the road to wanting to be myself, but I just I have a problem with, in my childhood, of religion, faith, and all that. And I believe in other things, but I don't know if faith is part of that. And I don't mean to be rude to anybody about it.
No, thank you for sharing, Bobby. First off, let me honor you for your story, if you don't mind, because you said something that I would, if I could reframe, you said whether you're in the right space. I think you're in the perfect space, right? And let me tell you why, if you don't mind. So there's a couple of things you shared. One, I will say, even with what you shared about the professionals that helped you, I believe you said two facilitators, and then you had I don't know if it was two private therapists, but after
No,
losing
one private
your,
therapist, and then two.
okay,
Jackie's one of the facilitators, and Laura was before Jackie.
yeah, okay, yeah, okay, I remember, Laura. Okay, perfect. And so here's what I want to say in regards to, not even, this is a minuscule bit for what you shared, but I just want to respond to what I heard in regards to this space. One, I think the facilitators that you're talking about, they created what I believe is important for any journey, right? Because you can exhibit faith, but if you don't feel safe, right, that you can actually grow, you can't move forward, right?
That's
So
right.
you get what I'm saying? So what you said is important, and I don't want to overlook that. I want to kind of pause and say that it's equally important to have a safe and supportive space, right? And one reason I want to share this with you, Bobby, and say that you're in the right space, and journeying, and this is also a space, I believe truth is strong enough to be scrutinized. So I don't believe we have to believe the same belief to actually have a conversation about belief. Does that make sense? So what I would say as well is, in your loss, in your journey, there's pain, right? There's pain, and what I'm hearing is that 3 years you were wanting to be yourself, right? But also there's this aspect of problem with religion that you described, and faith, and you have your own belief system. So what we're doing is part of that journey. And if anyone has gone through grief, grief will shatter your whole worldview. It will
Very
cause you to
believable.
question everything, right? So why I'm saying this, and this is the last thing I share. I want to go to Beth. Um, and Bobby, it's up to you to decide if this space is for you. But one thing I would say, for every space that I am in, I want everyone to feel what the Bible calls shalom. It's not just a peace or a greeting. It's shalom in its proper terminology and understanding means well-being. So we need to shift from just safe spaces and supportive spaces to well-being spaces where I can show up as myself, where all of me, the good, bad, the ugly, the questioning, the doubts, the concerns, the dismay, the disappointment, can actually exist and feel like I can be seen. And so my hopes is that during your journey in this space, and know that it's self-select work, by the way. So as long as you feel safe and supported, this is your space. That's what I want to say to you.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. You're welcome. And next we'll go to Beth. What are your thoughts, Beth?
Okay. Hi. Okay, I'm in the store right now, but I'll walk out.
Okay.
So what the question was, like, about faith, how do I get more faith, or what was I get lost because you're a deep
Yeah.
thinker.
No, I
But
just do too
I
much
feel like,
talking. No, you're good. You're
yeah.
good. No, the question was actually specifically, how does faith assist us during our journey from pain to purpose?
Okay. Well, I mean, just like a lot of people, in their journey, felt like, what I mean, they were at their end in some ways, and so do I, because I felt at the time that life was happening to me when I was married, when I went through that divorce, and basically he said, in so many words, I don't care what happens to you, which I
Mm.
equated to, I don't care if you die, because of how he did things. And it was my faith in God, because I never, like, my self-esteem was in the minus when he, when 4 years ago. And so I have this saying, where God guides, he provides. So he's helped me, and I'm still on this faith walk, which is no cakewalk when you're single and when you started over. But I just recently, just this past week, moved into a really nice place. And as soon as the lady mentioned it to me, I'd like you to move here, it's in the same community, considerable upgrade. Oh my God. And tons bigger. And I just knew it was from the Lord. And so I chose, and I'm still choosing, although I can tell you in tears many times and brokenness, like this morning, that I'm choosing to have faith that he is holding my hand, that he won't ever leave me or forsake me. And that, it's all about the process. We're not supposed to have everything figured out. And, that's where, he builds our faith. And, it's like, things are going to happen anyway. So either we're going to have faith, and for me, pray and have faith and have hope. And it's evidence and substance too. Because he's already answered prayers. He already provides for me. I mean, I had to reinvent my whole life, and from glory to glory, he keeps helping me to trust him more completely. And I'm always like, really, Lord, another level, really, Lord, another level, really, Lord. And I'm trying my best. I'm doing my best to show up for myself in that commitment and devotion to God, to go from glory to glory for his glory, and to step out in faith, because
Okay.
things are going to happen anyway. So either I'm going to worry, or I'm going to trust and have faith and hope that everything's going to work out and he's got it covered.
I like it. I love it. I love it. I love it. And thank you for sharing. Um, so this aspect, and I want to make sure you all hear and we from each other as well, because I did see a couple of hands. Thank you, Beth, for sharing your story, and also even in the practical things of transitions that you've seen your faith in God actually play out. I saw Lori, I saw then Rachel, then KD. Go ahead, Lori.
Hey, so I did want to acknowledge, because I think somebody was talking about in regards to, what you meant by faith, and I think they might have missed you talking about secular faith, like faith within yourself and faith that
Mhm.
things are going to get better. So I wanted to acknowledge that. I do appreciate that you do foster a safe space for people like me who are not as religious as some people. Which there's nothing wrong either way. It's just I have always appreciated that about you. So I wanted to thank you for that.
I agree.
Thank you.
You were asking about people to share their experiences in regards to faith and
Yeah.
struggles and blah blah, and how it personally impacted them. So Denard, I know that I've spoke to you before a while ago in regards to a situation in which I came very close to taking my own life. It was my dad had gotten into this pretty much vegetative state in the hospital. He was the only person in my life that was stable in any kind of way. He was the kind of person who never asked for help. He took care of everybody, very successful, dad of the year. And just like that, he couldn't do anything besides move his eyeballs from side to side for months. And I watched his skin peel off. I watched him lose his faculties, not understand what's going on. And as I saw him deteriorating in front of my face, I thought the world was broken and I didn't want to be a part of it. And I remember being in my bedroom crying hysterically and thinking, why am I trying to forge a path in a broken world where things were supposed to be fair and good, and that's the person I love the most in this entire world who never hurt anyone. This is their end. And there was a moment, I had the bottle of pills near me. There's a moment in which it was kind of like well, are you doing this or not? And I tossed it back in my mouth, and I remember it hitting, like the sensation of it, and just this voice in me being like, if you do this, this is potentially your last, you're not going to get another shot at this scary ass journey called life. Is this really what you want? Maybe there is a chance that it will get better, but you'll never know.
You just told my story too.
So from then on, I made it a point to look at my life differently, to invest more heavily in my own needs, in my own mental health, and I think also to be kinder to myself and other people. And it was just just the beginning of a very long journey of recovery for me, and realizing that me almost taking my life wasn't just about watching my dad deteriorate, but it was also mixed in with not loving myself and never investing enough in myself to figure out who I was as a person, to have a foundation to stand on. So when things got tough, I knew I'd be able to get through it. So I just wanted to share that because I thought maybe it could help someone.
Thank you, Lori, for sharing.
Mhm.
And thank you for also honoring this space, for reminding us all we have a place and we all have a purpose, even in those moments where um, hope wanes. Just like you said, that voice is that reminder, and I resonate deeply with that. Again, as you all can see, even those moments where we're lost and feel unsure, um, there's faith can help us find a way to discern the right path, as we said earlier. And I know we're winding up here, but if you all can allow 5 more minutes, I definitely want to get, I think it was KD and Rachel, for them to share. But I also want to put a pause here. If you do need to go to, because there are other master classes and other rooms available, I don't want to hold anyone. Nothing good was meant to be kept to ourselves. So, and I'm very grateful for you all being here. So if you're able to, as we conclude and we move forward to the end of our time together, I would just like to ask you all for additional 5 minutes, for those that can stay. And welcome, Gigi. I did see you. And I want to take Rachel, then KD, and then we'll close out our time together.
Denard, I think actually KD had their hand up first. And
Okay.
just to
Okay.
be mindful of time, I'm really okay to share next week or whenever. So KD, go ahead.
Thanks, Rachel.
Thank you, Rachel. I was going to say, in terms of the question of faith, I think I've always looked at it as a very deeply as a belief system. And for me, it was rooted in spirituality, that allowed me to believe in something greater than my experience, especially in times when your experience can be overwhelming. Um, so for me, that's where I guess my definition of faith is. I know that in times of pain, I there I can just recently, well, within a couple of years ago, I lost my father during COVID, and it was a surprise to me. It was not something that I had expected. He was found dead in his apartment, and it was probably the most earth-shattering feeling of pain I have ever felt in my life. And what I noticed about myself is that when I get to that point where I almost feel like I'm about to lose, um, it's, you know, your sense of your sense of who you are in life, everything becomes unstable. And for me, my next thing that the next feeling I have is I got to get out of this. I can't deal with this pain. It's almost like putting your hand over fire. And so with that response comes this idea of, okay, what's next? And then I feel that for me, that has been God uh, helping me through that process, you know, through a belief system of studying and trusting based on experiences of the past that really fortifies that hope for me to know that even tough circumstances, no matter how tough they are, it's something that you can get through. And then, of course, the working, that active part, which makes me believe what I say I believe, actually. So I just wanted to share that.
Thank you, KD. I definitely quoted you in the chat, and thank you for sharing your journey. And you all keep giving me gifts and more and information about your journey. I've already believed each of you are beautiful individuals, but the more I hear everything that you've had to endure during your journey, I see why, like, God has placed me here to be able to be reminded that not only am I not alone, but that you all are the beautiful tapestry when I look for the goodness of humanity, even despite all the ups and downs that we're talking about from this journey of pain to purpose, which is we talked about it's a process. So that means it's a continuous one, right? But with the insights that I've heard from you all in your shared experiences, I I I would assume, and I know I'm speaking for everyone here, that we're better equipped to navigate that journey because we don't feel alone, and hopefully you all remember early on I gave this quote. I can't remember who actually said it, so excuse me, but essentially they said that pain is not your enemy. It is the messenger, right? So my hope is as we reflected in the very beginning of advice, and now you all heard your stories, we recapped all the lessons thus far. We're moving into this next phase of like carrying these lessons with us as we move forward. Remember, move forward, not just move on, and strengthened by faith that unites us in these shared purpose, right? Then we can actually continue to have these decisions and these discussions that help to enlighten us on that journey so we can see that road to purpose, despite how bleak it may feel in that moment. And just like Katie said, so we can actually believe in something greater than our experience. And that transforms us in our experience. So, you all, I want to say thank you. I love you. We will be here next Sunday as well at the same time, and we will continue our journey together. And but what we will start to do is hear from you all as you all share your journeys and people I bring from the community in regards to how they've transformed their pain into purpose. So thank you. I hope to see you here next time and continue to be you. Remember, you cannot get through what you're going through without you. Bye, everyone.
Thank y'all.
Bye.
Love y'all.
Thank
Love
you,
you too.
Denard.
You're
Same
welcome.
here. Bye, everybody.
Bye.